The Badgers get a gut punch in the portal. What does Xavier Lucas leaving mean for the program? What does it mean for the DB room? We'll talk about it next on Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers with your host, Ryan Herring, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day, plus breaking when stuff happens, good or bad. We're here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for all the everydayers, for everyone that's part of this community. If you're in the Discord, if you're on, whatever you are, appreciate you. As always, man, it's important to remember that no matter what, we're in this together. This Badgers community is in it together. We all have the same goal, so don't turn on each other. This one stinks. Xavier Lucas entering the portal, freshman quarterback, 4-star cornerback last year, 6'1". I mean, we all know the measurables. We all know the upside. Torin actually has a pretty good comment. Literally head-turning news for folks in my office. They heard me swear when I read the thumbnail. Yeah. This is one of those that's a gut punch. We talked about it early. Actually, we did a show before the portal opened, and I said, because I heard some things, and I actually knew Xavier Lucas was getting offers kind of during the season. That's not a surprise to me. I didn't know this was coming. I thought he was staying. It is what it is. But I said before the portal, we're going to lose some players this year that stink, that are going to make you feel it. This is one of those make you feel it guys. There's no glossing over this one. This one's a big hit. This is a big hit for, I think, three big reasons why this is a big hit. The first is he's a starter next year, right? Like Xavier Lucas is one of your starting corners next year on a team that doesn't have a lot of defensive back depth. So from an on-field standpoint, it's a big loss, future production, future potential. It's a big loss from that standpoint. You're talking about a guy who's coming in who has several more years here, who would have been a starting fixture in that secondary for several years. So you're not just needing to replace a piece this year. You're needing to replace a piece that would have been a fixture in that secondary for multiple years. And the third reason I think this is a big deal is there's a bit of a perception hit here. For most of this offseason, outside of maybe an Anelu Lafayette, and I think people were split on what that was, for most of this offseason, the Badgers, it felt like kept the players they really needed to keep. Certainly, you lost players that I think could be good players. You lost players that I think could be depth players. This is a player where it feels like this is a Chucky Hepburn moment for the football team. This feels like another team came into your chicken coop and stole your prize egg. No, not your prize egg. There's other players on this team, but stole one of your prize possessions. The fox got in the hen house and made away with something that ticks you off. I think for those three reasons, this is a big one. It's a bummer. I want to talk a little bit about the emotion of it and then the reality of it in a second, but I also these reaction shows are about this. It's a bummer, man. You get invested in these players. We're all college football fans. A big part of being a college football fan is following the recruiting process, following the players coming to campus, seeing the huddle film. You're able to talk to them, and then you see them play early, and you start building out this pipeline. And we know that's not what it is anymore. We know that, but we're still coming to grasp with it. Like, fans and college football fans will say they know it. We know this is the new reality, but we still react like we don't know it, right? And I'm in that boat too. We still react when you lose a 4-star talent that you're really into. We still react like it's 1997, like it's 2005, like it's 2014. We're like, oh my gosh, how? And the how is, this is the reality of college football. You're going to lose studs. You're going to lose studs. Doesn't make it okay. Doesn't make it easier. It is what it is. I do want to throw, he's going to Miami. There's crystal ball there. None of this should surprise us. Miami finished number 2 in his recruitment in 2024. They pulled out all the stops for him. This is another lesson to learn. When you're recruiting high school kids now, if you don't get them, you just try again in another year, right? That's the other thing I've been pondering here. Which players has Wisconsin finished number 2 for? That just another year, we'll roll the dice again. That's college football right now. As wild as it is, until changes happen, until legislation comes down, if you finish second for a recruit, it used to be, oh my goodness, we almost got that player. Now it's like, we'll try again in a year. We'll throw a bag at him. Yeah, it is what it is. Keep in mind, this isn't just about money. Listen, from what I've heard, we're not matching what Miami's paying. But even if Wisconsin was to match that, Miami's his hometown. They won 10 games last year. Like, you may have had to overpay what Miami offered, which was a substantial amount. I've heard $750 is just a number I've heard. I'm not, don't take any of this for gospel. There's numbers that are out there. But even if Wisconsin matches it, there's no guarantee that you're keeping them, because you have to keep them away from a hometown state. You have to keep them away from a school that was more successful last year. You have to keep them. Oh, you have to keep him in an area that he's not as familiar with. So yeah, I think it's a lot of things. I don't think it's just a money thing. And even if you could match him, you're still got to fill out a secondary around him. We talked about before Xavier Lucas left. You need 2 or 3 more bodies. So I don't know if you could afford to go all the way up to that number that would have, whatever it would have taken. And I don't know what that number was. And maybe there's not a number. Maybe a school down south, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be Miami, came in with a number and Xavier said, man, I can go home. I can play for a team that's winning more and I get paid. I'm good. This isn't a negotiation. That works for me. That's very likely what happened, y'all. Is it frustrating? Yeah, it is super frustrating. It is super frustrating. Okay, let's take some of your comments here. I do think success plays a part in it. Bo Dragon says they're leaving because they have no success under Fickle. I don't think it's. Listen, they're also leaving because they get paid. Like, speaking in singularity here, in Xavier Lucas's case, he's also getting paid. He's not. It's not a like we're losing, so I'm bouncing. It's also the piggy bank is getting richer there. P says even the recruiting department hates college ball now. I've talked to a lot of people involved in things and not just with Wisconsin. Like, we have a Locked On Podcast Network. I hear from other hosts of other schools that cover other schools. A lot of people are frustrated with this. It's a tough spot to be in. Nick B says, I say it's money problems more than a Fickle issue. Look at Marshall. It's the coach's fault. No, it's money. Yeah, it's money is a big part of this. I don't think this is on the staff. I don't think this is a staff thing. I think Miami has more money and they're more willing to spend it. And on top of that, they have other things that are attractive. So I don't think this is a staff thing. But next year, when people are frustrated that our corners maybe aren't as good, it's a tough spot to be in. All right, let's talk about the reality here. So that's the emotion. This sucks. This stinks. It's frustrating as a college football fan. Let's talk about the on-field of this. So you've lost Xavier Lucas. We've already talked about the Snowdens, the DeClunas, the Lofis. You've lost a ton of corners in this room, right? Where does that leave you right now? So you have Amelia Agard, and again, listen, the portal's not closed yet, but we're speaking in what we know right now. We're dealing with what is the actual ground truth right now. You have Ricardo Holman still. Hopefully he's able to stay. You have Jay Harper, Emilio Agard. Listen, I like Agard a lot. Agard's not a slouch. Agard was 1B in that cornerback room last year to Xavier Lucas's 1A. So I think there's a chance he starts, or a chance he's the slot corner, which I think he's actually pretty well suited for. So you could go Rico, Agard, and then you got to get 2 portal guys minimum. You still have Jay Harper. Jay Harper is a longer athlete, like, from a arm standpoint. Good jumper, was a basketball guy, good ball skills, a little raw. Harper's a good kid, good physical skill set. I like him as well. Maybe Harper fits into that mix. And then you have the freshman coming in. Could a Jamar Washington play right away? Could a Skanes play right away? Skanes is actually a guy with his physical skill set. He's not a burner, but I think he's a little more developed. He hits. He's long. I think he could play right away. None of these are ideal. Make no mistake. This is not me saying, well, you lost Lucas, but look at Cairo Skanes coming in. No, that's not a trade-off that works, but that might be a trade-off that needs to happen. And we're just looking at the ground truth. Wisconsin has a couple freshmen that might need to play early. They got Agard, they got Harper, Rico, and then you got to get 2 portal bodies. You got to get 2 or 3. I mean, if you can get 3, great. I don't know if 3 are finding a spot. So if you can get 2 portal guys, I think that's the bare minimum. You get 2 guys, one ideally that can come in and be a fork green. If you can find that guy, pair him with Rico, and then put Agard in the slot. Listen, Wisconsin has had worse cornerback rooms than that. Let's be super clear on this. It's not as good as it needs to be. Wisconsin has had worse cornerback rooms than if you do get a solid Nizier fork green type starter in the portal. You pair him with Rico, you put Agard in the slot, and you mix in some depth behind him. That's young. It's a little inexperienced. It's probably lacking a little physical skill set. You can do okay with that. If you get better pass rush, better front 7, which I think they've addressed this portal. All right, let's take a second there. And yeah, Easton Park says, assuming Rico stays. Again, we're definitely speaking in what we know right now. We haven't got that I am coming back declaration from Rico that we got from Preston Zachman, for example, from Daryl Peterson, for example, from Riley Mallman, for example. But as of right now, that's what we got. So I want to talk about kind of what it means for the program coming up next. Your comments. We are going to take a second as always, to say thank you for tuning in, and a second to talk about our friends of the show. It's that time of year, and maybe some year we will be there as well, which, man, I can't wait if we get to this point. College football playoffs are back with the newly expanded 12-team format. It's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers looked to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoffs presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Today's episode also brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks. And hopefully you weren't counting on Xavier Lucas to be your PrizePicks Wisconsin player next year to get you interceptions or tackles, because that one is out the door. But PrizePicks does have injury insurance. They're your ultimate platform for daily fantasy. They have insurance for injuries. Again, if you lose a guy, you're still going to be set. They don't have transfer portal insurance. I almost wonder if you can get that now. Like, coaches should be able to get like transfer portal insurance. But if you sign up over at PrizePicks today, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. It is fun. It's easy. It's not as like intensive as the bigger fantasy games. You can jump right into this, which is why I love it. Just pick more or less on 2 or more players, and that's how you win. It's as simple as that. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay. Let's talk. Let's get some comments. How y'all feeling? If you had to put a confidence level on the Wisconsin Badgers football program right now, 0 to 10, where would you be? Yeah, let's keep going here. Yeah, Jim Mandel points out Alabama's having a difficult time losing players, keeping players. I don't know if y'all saw this. Alabama's athletic director put out like a call for fans to donate more because they were getting rated. I've said this a lot. Like, you're going to lose good guys in the portal. You're going to lose talented players in the portal. You just are. Alabama's done it. Texas has done it. USC is literally imploding. And like, that's USC. That's a blue blood brand. It doesn't make it more pleasant, but that is the reality of where we are in college football. And I don't think this is a situation where you just say, no matter what, we match what Miami or whomever is going to pay Xavier Lucas, because A, that might not be enough anyway. You might need to overpay that. And B, you can't match every price for every player. Now, you can make an argument that, is this a player that you needed to match just because of how unique it is to get a 4-star type cornerback at Wisconsin? That's a fair argument. That's a very fair argument to make, that maybe this is the type of guy that you got to put all the chips in, quarterback, cornerback, edge rusher, whatever. This might be that type of guy. You can make that argument. And I would entertain that argument. I don't think you're wrong on it, but I don't know if even that guarantees you keep him, because you're also fighting against the hometown poll. You're fighting against a team that was more successful last year. Yeah, it is frustrating. Easton Park says we don't have enough corners on the roster right now. I agree. Bob says Wisconsin can't afford to lose a ton of players. Larry says my confidence is 2. Team is not any better than last year, and we cannot compete financially. I think this team is better than last year, and I'm not going to let, as much as I like Xavier Lucas, I'm not going to completely throw, like, I like most of what's happened this offseason. I like the higher ground. I think offensively, I feel much, much better. I'll say that. Offensively, I feel much, much better about where this team is. And I think, listen, it's also fair. We got to see how they finish out this portal cycle. Let's see what they do to refill that secondary room before we say it's trash. Now, you're not going to find a Xavier Lucas in the portal, but if they can find a couple solid guys with the moves they made in the front 7, I like the Grimes hire. I like Edwards. I like what we're doing offensively. I love Kojiel. I think there's a chance the offense is significantly better next year. I really, really do. I like the young talent on the O-line. I like the young running backs. I'm not blowing smoke. Like, I think the offense could be significantly better next year. Secondary is going to take a step back, but I also think the front 7 on the defense could be better. So I don't think we're worse than last year. And even the compete financially thing, we're never going to compete financially with Oregon, with Miami, probably with those Blue Bloods, but we never did before. Wisconsin never paid the highest rates for coaches, for assistants, for facilities, recruiting budgets. In a lot of ways, the more things change, the more they've stayed the same. The portal is madness. It's crazy. But Wisconsin has never lived at the upper tier of the financial spectrum of college football. They never have, ever. Now, you can argue they need to do a better job of closing that gap now that NIL and the portal is here. But that's never been Wisconsin's key to success. So Wisconsin needs to be a little bit smarter, like they've always done. Find that talent, develop it a little bit better. It just is what it is. It's a Moneyball approach. I know that's something Curtis has talked about a lot. That's where they got to get to with this. And I think a lot of the moves they made this offseason make sense. And spending a giant chunk of your NIL budget on a corner when you're a 5-7 team, again, in Monopoly world, when you can have all the money you want, that's absolutely something you do. If you're Oregon, you absolutely do that. If you're a school with unlimited resources, or if you're a school that's knocking on the precipice of the college football playoffs, you absolutely do that. I don't know if you do that in this situation because you still have a lot of holes to fill. You have to get back to respectability. And I think there's an element of perhaps, and this is again something I saw Curtis say, but I agree with it, perhaps it makes more sense to spread it out. And it's tough to be in the position where you have to make those decisions because not all schools are. And I would agree with that. Okay, let's keep going here. Let's see. A couple more comments. Jay in Toronto, this is an interesting comment. Is there something going on with our DB coaches? So I think this is a very, very, very good question to ask. When you look at the amount of players that have transferred out. Now, Alex Grange, when we talk DB coaches, he's gone anyway. He accepted the defense coordinator position. So I didn't love that hire to begin with, but he's not here anymore. Paul Haynes, who has a history of being a pretty successful cornerbacks coach, is pretty well respected with people you talk about, has had a history of getting success in places. But you do have to start to wonder if maybe he's not connecting with his players as well as he needs to. There are a lot of guys in that room that have transferred out with playing time available. And it's not just Lucas. Lucas is kind of the cherry on the top, but a guy like Max Lofi, right? A guy like DeClona, who came over with Fickle and signed with USF. How nice would it be to have Jonas DeClona back on this roster right now? That would be a starting or slot corner on this team right now. It'd be a really nice piece to have. And I don't think USF came in and offered him a giant bag, right? So a guy like, go back to Amari Snowden, although I've always felt like he was more of a safety than a corner. But yeah, like I think you have to wonder, is there a cornerback coaching issue there where you're just not connecting with the players? And in this new era of college football, something that I think we need to consider is it used to be you recruit players, you get them on campus and they're locked in, and then you just got to coach them. Now you almost have to put more of an emphasis on maintaining those relationships and continuing to, I hate to say re-recruit them, but you got to kind of at least play that game a little bit. And Paul Haynes is more of an old school guy. It's possible he doesn't play that game. You can argue if he should or not. Like I would argue college football has changed a lot and you might need to a little bit. Yeah, just my thoughts on that. All right, guys, we'll probably wrap it up here. Really do appreciate all you guys. If you're in the chat, listen, if you're in the Discord, just be cool to each other. I know people are frustrated right now. We are literally, this is not enjoyable. But this is college football as it is now. And I would say, I think you got to give Fickle an opportunity to see what happens in the portal still. What are they going to do to fill the cornerback room? What are they going to do to backfill that? Because they're definitely not done there. On Wisconsin, I really do appreciate you guys so much. We'll talk later tonight. As always, a couple really good guests coming up as well. So hope you guys tune into those. It's a bummer. Losing Xavier Lucas is a bummer. I do think it's more than just money. And I do think that Wisconsin probably play a little bit more of a resource allocation game than maybe some other schools. All right, on Wisconsin, and we will talk later.